found interesting to me work more on corporate identities, and this is a logo for a New York-based media server called Rhizome. It's a media community, and at this time was also new that it's possible, for sure everybody knows this today, that it's possible to track individual IP addresses from the users on the web server. Means you can see which user, so Google Analytics use this as a tool, etc., etc. So we used this to make a kind of logo, so we tracked the individual users, the last 5 users on the website, or visitors on the website, and make a kind of mathematical system. So you have here in this line, you have the kind of, moment, I don't know, is this working? No, not. Anyhow. You see in this line, you see these rectangles, and you have these numbers, and these are the individual IP numbers. And at the end, you have a kind of logo system like this, and the logo is the mirror of the last 4 or 5 visitors of the website, and it was a complete liquid thing in a way. So this is more or less the main idea. Okay. I'm show you a couple of books I designed in the last year. This is a series Johann talked about. It's a Sternberg lecture series, and it's an ongoing series. On the right side you see some logo tests I made at this time. We first want to start really with a mountain, because Sternberg called a star mountain, something like this. And this was really the idea to have this kind of sketch-up mountain and with the different light situations. But later on we came to the other symbol, and what you see here a little bit how the books, and maybe you have these books also in the library. Thank you very much. Yeah, good, super. Okay. This was a kind of very, very quick sold out book, interesting wise. It was a kind of research project from the ZKM Karlsruhe, who is the Zentrum of Kunst- und Medienkultur. It was a publication series about aesthetics of totalitarian states. And it was the first book since Mein Kampf, which was published with original texts, written text by Adolf Hitler. The text original came from 33 to 37 and was Hitler wrote, and this time for a monthly magazine, about his own ideas about art, where you know a little bit this thing. And this was the first book in the series who came out, and this was kind of also well discussed. So this was really the first book, and it's kind of very difficult to bring out these kind of books with this kind of, let us so-called fascist text, because you have there are a lot of laws you have. Not in Germany, all over the world, with this thing you must have reason why to publish it, and who is the publishing house, and who is the kind of distribution, etc., how is this right, so that can be also go directly in a completely wrong direction. Johann always talked about, this is the Forsythe Company, an identity from 2004, I think. So we had the opportunity to make every year a new campaign for Forsythe. So this is one from 2007, for example, and the idea is also a little bit that the idea of Forsythe is that he reinvented himself more or less every year new completely with the program, and following this we also made we don't make a logo for him or a kind of brand identity. We make a campaign for 1 year, and these campaigns for 1 year are then the kind of identity of the specific theme they run in this year. And what you see here also, this was a campaign where we also had, together with William Forsythe, the choreographer, the idea to bring this campaign when we make photos also in a movie. Ideas. These are 2 independent. What you see here in this movie is interesting. This is a kind of before rehearsal, a kind of warm up. So that the dancers do, it's a kind of warm up to stretching, etc. And we filmed this completely independent and bring this later with a very simple idea together. And this was also but you see that the effect that has happened in some few seconds in this movie also happened in the kind of photos to make this kind of new, or you think they have something to do, for sure they have nothing with to do. the campaign from last year for the Forsythe Company. And then 2006, there's an Austrian light company who asked us to develop a brand identity for them. And the reason was they had a double name before. They're called Zumtobel Stuff. And they want to go to the Vienna stock market, and they decided to use only the word Zumtobel. And it was a great opportunity to work for a company in this size, for example, and this more or less we never worked again for these huge clients, etc. And it was a little bit of pity, but anyhow, it was really kind of very cool to direct really with the owner. And at this time, the company Zumtobel, I think everybody who's architect knows this company a little bit, and it's very kind of proud that you really communicate directly with the owner of the company and sit together with him in the office over the weekend and develop the brands and very, very direct, so no marketing in between, nothing, etc. And also one of the ideas of the logo is that you see here in the animation is, and what you see here also in the plastic here, the 3D thing that we had developed with the engineers, a kind of copy sign, what it's not so easy to copy Zumtobel lamps with this kind of three-dimensional logo for Chinese copy guys, etc. Because this was also a kind of intervention in the logo that is really hard to copy. This is the identity for Isa Gensken. Isa Gensken is a German artist. Maybe you know her work for the German Pavilion in 2007, and this was also the year or a few months before they jailed Saddam Hussein, and this was also a comment from Isa. We use this image as key image for a lot of billboards and posters, and the main identity is more or less for these posters. And also the website you see at the animation and also electronic medium, and the idea is that at this time we started together with Isa Gensken on the pavilion, and the identity that there were no image there, and we thought about to use Venice as an image, and also Isa had the idea to start the room at the German Pavilion in Venice with a completely mirror room. Completely mirrored, and this was the idea: bring a mirror room together. And everybody knows Venice is this kind of, if you look on it, is a kind of it's a double layer city. If you look in the lagoon, and you have this kind of, this were night shots, so the colors is green because the exposure was something like in half an hour, and the green came from the lagoon, and this was, and we must wait really the whole night. This one boat is going to there's no Photoshop in these images, it's pure photography. And if one boat came to the, so a hospital boat for an ambulance boat, for example, you must wait for 2 hours to have this completely silenced water. It was so 3 o'clock in the morning, something like this, so 2 days in the row we did this 4 locations. 2 years later, we did the corporate identity with Liam Gillick, and break his name with this kind of prisma from size Jena. They are kind of in this size and more in this size. So they are, and it's normally A4 paper with the name under it, and to try to make it not really good readable, but also it's a collaboration work Liam and I did together. And it's really, it's photography, it's a glass prism from Zeiss Jena, and it's a piece of paper, A4, black and white print with the name Liam Gillick on it. And an actual project I made now, this is the corporate identity for the also Venice Biennale for the country of Armenia. And this, everybody knows that the identity is now under the umbrella of Rem Koolhaas, and the part of Armenia is that they will focus on the history of their country in modernity, but mostly based on Soviet modernity architecture. Because this is, I don't know if everybody was ever in Yerevan, and Yerevan is the kind of capital of Soviet modernism architecture. And this is also that the curatorial team was invited by Rem Koolhaas and by the Venice Biennale to realize this project. What you see here, this is the first poster, and there's also publication, etc. coming out. Some identity for the Jewish Museum in Frankfurt. They have two locations. One is the Jewish Museum and the other is the Museum Judengasse. Two locations, completely two entrance systems, brings us to this idea to make this monogram. This was a competition for an art, culture, technology center at the MIT in Boston. And we had this idea for the ACT to at the campus at the MIT is this nuclear power station, and we had this idea to electrify this logo and this kind of bring it in animation mood with power regulation of the power station. So it's not constant they're producing; it's a little bit variant. And we found this idea very nice, so they found it not so really nice at the MIT. It was not realized because they were not keen at this time to show the world that they have a nuclear power station on the campus for Al-Qaeda targets, etc. for sure. Also an actual project is it's a hotel in Fogo Island. And this is a Norway architect called Saunders, and we had to make the identity not for the hotel, but in the hotel is an art space, a kind of gallery, a kind of Kunstverein, and what you see here, Fogo Island is a very, very small island. It's in the front of Newfoundland, and it's very cold there. It's minus 50 degrees in winter. And when I was there, I make the photos minus 35. And very, very cold. You can do not really things. You can maybe there are 2 weeks in the year you can go swimming if you are really hardcore. And but it's a kind of totally relaxing, and it's a size of 10 kilometers to 10 kilometers. Their population is 2,000 people, and it's really difficult to get there. Also, you need a ferry, and the ferry goes for 2 hours to Fogo Island. But when it's frozen in winter, you can't go away from the island because it's too dangerous to use the ferry. So sometimes you are stuck there for 4 weeks. But anyhow, the hotel is super, super successful. They opened in autumn last year, and it's now the #1 business conference hotel in Canada. And so it's still, all this kind of, I don't know, Apple Developer Conference Canada, meeting Fogo Island, 4 weeks, boof, every room full. You see, also interesting of this project is that they produced every furniture you see here in these photos. This is inside the rooms. They produced with international workshops on the islands, so they have this art and craft workshops. So normally people who build ships, this is the only kind of tradition they have, fishing and a little bit shipbuilding. And what you see is the furniture for international designers from UK, from Sweden, from the States, and to build this furniture. And we also made for them a kind of concept to make a brochure and a publication with this furniture concept, and they are now invited in Milan to the next furniture fair with this project, because it's at the other side. It's not only the furniture and the hotel, and you can buy this furniture. You are a guest or whatever. You see this on the internet. You can order this chair, and this chair would build for you, and then you wait 4 weeks, and then it would ship to you to your address. But it's also a social project that normally in Fogo Island, because it's so hard that the people have no jobs the half of a year. And now with this kind of project, which is financed also from the government of Newfoundland, they have jobs in the winter. And it's both. It's a luxury hotel, a little bit a design hotel, and the other side a social project. This is the publication series, and there you see down, this is the logo we create for them. And this is the view of Fogo Island when you're coming from Europe. So when you're coming with a boat from Europe, like the Irish people came 250 years ago, you see the island in the silhouette like this. And also interesting on Fogo Island is that maybe everybody knows the name Redskin for Indians. And the name Redskins came from Fogo Island because the Indians at this island, so 100 years ago, wear leather dresses, and the leather dresses are colored in red. And so when the English people came and they said, as a redskin have nothing to do with the color of the skin, have to do with the leather they wear, and this was kind of done in Western movies. Anyhow. An identity for the Manifesto, and Manifesto was at this time Manifesto 7. It's a huge biennial of contemporary art, and it was at this time at South Tyrol, and they asked us to make an identity on both sides, an identity where you see that it's art, and the other side, that identity who have a little bit something like a tourism campaign, that you may want to make holidays there. It's very nice, South Tyrol, maybe you know Bolzano or Rovereto and all these beautiful cities there. And this is A4, folded A4 paper, and then very simple on the copy, and then make photo of it, put it together, and make a little bit colorize in Photoshop, and we build up the complete identity and also a logo with tons of variation. The logo was also animated, and we built these kind of identity all over. The distance was 170 kilometers from the first station, from Franzens Feste, and here also we designed these kind of bus stations. And in the bus station was the identity, so you can use the bus for the whole tour, and it's a kind of a huge venue, like a documenta a little bit, when you know the kind of format thing. We talk about 100 artists, and talked about 200,000 visitors in 3 months. It was a kind of huge thing. You see, this was finally one of the poster series, so the kind of, and also they used it later. It was very funny. The Manifesto still closed, and we saw the posters a year or 1.5 years later also at the train station, and they keep it. So they liked it to have this kind of artificial mountain touristic image. Yeah. I was invited the same year, I think 2007, to the Kunsthaus Graz for a project, for an artistic project, and the Kunsthaus Graz. Maybe you know this building. This was also built by Peter Cook, I think. It's made by Peter Cook, a very famous building in Graz, and they asked me to do a kind of design intervention, and what's interesting on this building that every typography, the name of the complete building is glued with this kind of plastic foil thing, so there's no sign really on the building for the name of the Kunsthaus Graz, who is kind of, you can really change the identity completely. So this brings me to the idea to change the name completely for the exhibition. The exhibition held 3 months, and the exhibition called Protection, and I said, okay, let us change completely the name with everything. So for the whole exhibition, the house is not called Kunsthaus Graz, it's called Gutshaus Kranz. And it's the only possible German anagram of these words. And Gutshaus Kranz, it's a little bit like a restaurant. It's like an Austrian traditional restaurant. And we also changed the website of this and everything. And remove everything inside the building, and also mirror it, because the whole typography was on these glass walls for the outside, and we make it also vice versa, that you see it from inside and not from outside, and make all these changings. And if you go now to Google and ask which artists this time exhibited at this Gutshaus Kranz, not Kunsthaus Graz, you see the old name, and for example Elmgreen and Draxet also was part of the exhibition, but they're never displayed in the Kunsthaus Graz, only in the Gutshaus Kranz, because it's also an effect that we don't think about it, that at this time if you change the name and shape it for 3 months, so like the Staedelschule is another name for 3 months, then you have these 3 names, also the history of every event who's at this time, sorry. An corporate identity for the gallerist Johann König. Maybe you know him, and maybe you know a little bit the fact it was more or less at this time nearly blind gallerist It's only the view is only 5% you can see. This was a stamp, a competition for a stamp for Germany, but sorry for this, it was never realized. It was original of 3 to 2 centimeters in this size, and they asked us to make a positive image about Germany, and we thought about a South Park version of Germany or something like this, and how is it possible in this size to make a drawing of whole Germany and everything is in, etc. But then also they said that it's very, very complicated. So you have here, maybe you have the Dome of Cologne in, but then is the question, you have Frankfurt in the center, and is this not the Ruhrgebiet, and all this kind of political discussion came, and then so I can't realize it anyhow. But even we have the Black Forest in. This is an app clock I made 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, it was one of the first apps I made. It's a digital mix, a hybrid clock between an analog and a digital clock. So the numbers are rotating around this center and also changing. And it's still on the App Store, but with the new operating system, this iOS 7, it's not working. We must make a reinstallation of it, but it's kind of very nice, and it's just it was never nobody did this before. It was really, we are wondering, and also we made a patent for Europe on this thing. So, but at the same time, nobody needs this kind of time. It's yeah. These works, the following slides are some experiments I made with my students. I teach graphic design in Weimar, and I made a kind of very, very small laboratory where the students start to work on own images, and this have to do. So when you work as a graphic designer, normally you are the images were delivered to you from the clients, or you use a camera and make some own whatever. And but really, kind of working with abstract image is a kind of it's not near to the graphic design scene anyhow. And the idea is a little bit to educate the people, educate the students, and we're talking about very young students, not the postgraduate like you are. So we talk about they are 20 to 22 to 24, something like this, in the first semester bachelor students. And we had this small room with a little bit digital equipment, and make some experiments. I'll show you some. A chaotic pendulum a student made 2 years ago, and a lot of things I think you know, and also was stolen from the internet and all the things. But it's also important for these people to rebuild these things, to make this experience itself. For sure, you can also make this in processing as a kind of software things, but they build it really as a kind of concrete machine. And later on, he puts these LEDs on and uses this as a kind of image machine, and with long exposures photography, and it's the same with this kind of 3-color LEDs. And ferromagnetics, maybe also everybody know, it's very popular on the internet, and it's a kind of a very nerdy thing to have this liquid, and you have this magnetic liquid and have a kind of rotation under it, and then you make a movie, and then you make single images on it. It's very effectful. This thing is about 2 centimeters the size. And experiments with small rooms with laser gravitation a little bit, some experiments. This is also very nice. This is this new toothbrush. Maybe you know this, not electric, this normally toothbrush. They have now these multicolored hairs. So, and this was a student who put this on a scanner and move it via scanning. And then you have this kind of poppy toothbrush producing this kind of images. An actual thing, there's also interesting that we work a little bit with archives now at the moment, and there was one teacher who called, maybe you never heard about, he called Schiefelbein, and Schiefelbein was at the Weimar School the only art and design professor in the GDR from the late 50s to the early 90s. And he was one of these modernity decoration guys who work with this kind of concrete forms, and you know this maybe from Berlin, from the Café Moscow. He also did this there, and he had an own class in Weimar, and with this class they make really models, facade models in miniature. We talk about 10 centimeters, and we had the opportunity to work with this model. So some are from him, from Schiefelbein, and some are of students. It was not really clear, and we make some experiments, and mostly they have only 2 of it, so prototypes, and they make it really with hand. We talk about these were from the 50s, and we made a mirror system, so we built a kind of this mirror to mirror that we can have this kind of endless facade effects, but only with these 2 effects. But they were never realized in the GDR. It's a kind of this kind of retro and realized it's later as an archive work. Also an experiment with LEDs in different levels where the lens flare came from the specific lenses in the different. So it's a measurement between the distance of the LEDs and the different lenses you have in your camera. Okay. Short, before I finish this, I made a research at the MIT in Boston 2012 about a graphic designer who called Muriel Cooper. And Muriel Cooper, maybe you know, maybe you have a book at home from MIT Press, and if you look in the book, you have this logo. There's these kind of bars in the logo of the MIT Press. It's very popular, also in the architecture theory, I think. And this is the logo from Muriel Cooper. And Muriel Cooper teaches there at the MIT for more or less 30 years, and also had all the times of starting with printing experiments, and then later on founded together with Niklas Negroponte the Media Lab. And the Media Lab then came complete electronics. They start to work with silicon graphics, three-dimensional things, etc. And she had huge interventions of different decades of design history. It's it's very interesting in a way if you look close. And I had an opportunity to go into this archive and made an own work with these archive materials. And what I found is she did a workshop. This is this archive material. There's also a book coming out next year on MIT Press about her work, and now is an exhibition at the Columbia University in New York. Small exhibition curated by David Reinford, and she was popular in the 70s, was this visible language workshop, and this was a student collective work that students work together, so in multicolor prints. So the idea is, so every student use one color, and then you go to the printing machine. We talk about offset printing, and then the second student overprint this image with another color, and then the third student came with another color, and then the fourth student. At the end you have this kind of chaotic overlapping color system, and on the other side you have no really author about the work, and it's one thing about the system and the other thing is about the authorship, and it's also have a lot of to do with this kind of 70s thinking about this kind of also hippie-esque thinking. Later on the MIT were more kind of electronic. This was really analog. So I found these plastic foils there, and these plastic foils was only the at the dry workshop to display the students how the system work later on the print machine, and I using these foils with my iPhone and with a light table to make own compositions on it. So I steal more or less the original material from Muriel Cooper and make other compositions of it, and on my own. And you see also a little bit in the graphic, in the single graphic of this, that you have the different holes and the different transparencies in the holes. That if you put these 4 colors or 3 colors together, you have an endless combination, really endless variation of what you can do only with this kind of 15 to 15 centimeter large plastic foils. Very interesting, I think so. And also, it's a little bit like you had here in the 70s Thomas Bayerle, who was more or less than 30 years professor here, and he also made printing experiments at this time, and also with the students in here in the Staedelschule, and this was more or less at every art school very en vogue to work in this abstract way with printing.
Piano, or whether you sing it, or whether a girl sings it or a man sings it, makes it sound different. And that's what I do. I add the sound. I don't change the A, and A is an A and a B is a B. I can't go too far away from it.
Okay, finally, a 4-minute video is now coming from the last German Design Award I started the lecture with. And this was a music video with the music from the band called Die Vögel from Hamburg. And this composition you see now are more or less 100% filmed with our iPhones, and most material is from Frankfurt, but also a lot of when we traveled worldwide. So thank you very much. So.
Thank you, Markus. A few questions?
Ups. Nein, ich wollte noch, genau, das, ja, okay, fertig. Okay, gut. Yeah.
You talk about doing marketing campaigns?
Pardon?
Campaigns for Forsythe Company.
Yes.
When you do a campaign and it changes graphics or whatever, how do you keep the identity the same? How does someone say, oh, okay?
You see it a little bit that more or less that we work mostly with the dancers. We work with our team mostly visual with the dancers. The dancers are kind of well known here a little bit, and even if you change the photography, the style completely, so the audience here in the Frankfurt area and the other part was Zurich and Dresden, so they remember it a little bit, so that they know that this is a Forsythe poster. It's interesting. So we're also wondering about it, but it came every year when we make a reinvention of the design. It's possible. For sure, yeah.
Would that be possible with somebody who's kind of, and this is an established thing, right?
Yeah. It's completely against corporate identities. That's what you mean, no?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, how do you get somebody involved who's never seen it before?
Yeah. But then it's interesting. So then it's interesting how the posters are sold also, and how the audience is interested in it. And this is also part of the balancing, where you can measure this a little bit, how it functions. And also the other thing is selling tickets, for sure. That's also the other measurement. But this is not the big thing. So that Forsythe is every piece he made is sold out, for sure. Please, if nobody knows, will Forsythe go to the pieces there? I don't know. Next premiere is I think in 6 weeks from now. It's also very interesting for architects, I think. Yeah.
Markus, I'm intrigued. I thought I want to return to the initially the text that I quoted by Weisbeck. When he speaks about, first of all, an analog experiment. It seems to me that I'm just wondering how you, on one hand, I'm absolutely, it's in this, Larsen's absolutely stunning work. I'm very intrigued by, I'm fascinated in general, but I'm intrigued in your work by the graphic space that is engendered in the and it seems to me also that there's an incredible freshness right now to the work that results from the physical experiments. But can you explain to us, why do you go that way? Why do you retort to physical experiments?
Oh.
I mean, there would be so many digital opportunities, wouldn't there? When I founded this room in the university where I'm teaching, I must write a paper to get money, and it was a very simple idea, not in my experiments, but it was kind of experimental room. It was a very simple thing that you must write a clever text to get this kind of amount of money to start this kind of room. Means you need equipment, you need technology, you need all these things, and also you need a computer for sure. And we talk about, let us say, 30,000 euros. Was it at all? Not so much, but it's money for a university, and I wrote this text, and I had this idea that it's a hybrid between the photogram of the 20s of Naholy Notch and electronic imagery like processing or whatever, or other electronic images. And on the other hand, the university also have an own media department. And this is not possible to really touch the electronic and media department, because and we want to keep it a little bit in the middle. And also what is interesting, when you going in this field and then make analog process, etc., by image developing new images, creating new images, it's a completely it's interesting. There's not so much done in the 50s, 60s, etc. There's this kind of concrete photography or the subjective photography, maybe you know, but it's a very, very small scene there around, and they also were never successful at the art market. At this time in the 50s, 60s, so this abstract painting, like Jackson Pollock for sure, was super successful. Also the European ones, like Gruppe Spur or something like this. But photography, or let us say other image experiments, not really. It's a kind of let us say, there's something missing in history. For sure we are not complete to fill this kind of missing thing of history, but there is something. It's much more interesting in a way to make it analog. But for sure now we also work with rotations of iPads and make animation on iPads and put iPads on rotation things and make films and photography. Also with these kind of things we also mix media for sure.
When you say it's much more interesting when it's analog, why? What happens?
It's in a way it's not against digitality, but it's a kind of this kind of more this, we call it in Germany, this kind of more Jugendforscht. It's a kind of the physical room. You have the physical instruments. You have the kind of your physical desk, etc. And it's a complete other experience. At the end of the day, you also put all these things for sure in the computer and realize it and make whatever with it.
I realize that. It also seems to me that it predates your engagement in the university, because some of the stuff that you, like your documenta piece, which is called the Cape Brick,
Yeah.
but also some of the work for Forsythe where you used the mirror, that's also predates. Or is that about this time you started in teaching?
No, this was before. This is a simple collage technique I made in, I don't know.
Again, it's the physical experiment. It just fascinates me. I don't know if you guys know, obviously. I'm sure you use digital cameras and everything.
For sure. Yeah.
But it seems to me that it is what, because I think it problematizes the image, you know. And then we're looking at this our postwork, you know, it's entirely digitally generated.
Completely.
Well, I mean, I love it, but I also admit, you know, I don't think it's as great like some of the other work that you've done. It seems to me that there's a certain unbelievably powerful tension in some, you know, that you introduce a level of difference within the graphic space between elements and between zones that somehow has a power which simply purely digital very often does not.
Yeah, maybe this is for sure. This is the big question of digital. If a Photoshop image could have the same power than an oil painting or whatever, or the scan of an oil painting, and all this kind of discussions. I don't know. It's also this kind of retro against. Also, discussion is the sound of a vinyl record better than an MP3 and all these things. And also, it's a little bit kitschy to talk about these things in general. But I think it's more interesting to work in a physical space, and you have another thinking, and you have another time development. And this have a lot of things to do. There was this big discussion in photography. Everybody knows this who read Roland Barthes or these things. That is a big difference of photography was the changing of the long exposure. We talk about portrait images in the 18th century. We need 4 hours sitting there to have a portrait, and then after this new technique came out, you need out in half a second or whatever. Yeah, and this is a completely difference of imagery and thinking about images.
So what happened to the communicative value of it? I mean, have you ever, for instance, used any of these physical techniques and been able to use it for not what you call corporate, because that includes art institutions, and you call also corporate, you know, what you've done for us, but really corporate clients like Zumtobel or, you know, large firms. Do you think that could they live with that sort of power or that sort of inherent discontinuity within the space of?
We're starting at this time. We start an experiment for the Deutsche Bank in this direction. Yeah, abstract images, corporate images. So we make, I don't know if everybody knows these kind of very, very kitschy from Art and Com. Have you ever been in the brand space of the Deutsche Bank at the Taunusanlage 12? It's a kind of, it's a room, and the room explains the brand of the Deutsche Bank with a lot of monitors and statistics and projections, etc. Very, very expensive. They went €500,000 to build this room. This room was completely built of keran, this kind of ceramic material, high tech, and the completely room looks like a 3D model. And it's a one-to-one because it's really so super exact in a way. So and there in these brand space is a kind of prismatic mirror, and with this prismatic mirror, who mirrors a little bit the identity of the Deutsche Bank, we make experiments. So we put huge photos. We talk about 1 to 2 meter on cardboards, and put a hole in the photo for the camera and the lens, and stand in front of this kind of mirror and make the kind of mirror system of these images. So you have a kind of image machine after it, but it's completely analog. It's like a Photoshop filter in the real world. Very effectful, very cool in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. When you're dealing with a context where you're going to
Pardon?
when you're dealing with a context where you're going to put your work in, how much, like for instance this Boston project, how much did you take this into concern before you start developing?
As a concern, as a kind of commercial, or?
Well, let's say where you showed us one image where you had a bus stop and a logo.
Okay.
Behind it there was a big poster.
Yeah.
Where you had this paper that you used.
Yeah.
But maybe not in this, but how much do you pay attention to where you're going to put these posters?
That's a good. This normally you're completely. It's off your track normally as a graphic designer. So you make the posters and they decide normally. At this with the bus stop was a little bit that we made it together with the local architect and with the local curator. But normally you can't choose the context of the poster. Not really.
But do you have a sort of idea of what effect it will have on people?
Again, please.
You have some idea of what type of people you're going to make this, who's going to see this poster?
Yeah, for sure. This was, at this time, for sure, we are tracking to the art people, and this was, when we talk about the Manifesto, the folded paper thing, that was advertising in Fries Magazine, Art Forum, in Monopol, and all these kind of international and national art magazines. And also they make some experiments. They put also the advertising in tourist magazines, and then at the same time you have the art crowd there, and then you have the tourist crowd there who are there only because of nature and not to see contemporary art. But you can't really control it in a poster. It's not really. So I don't know. Yeah.
My question would be about the montages which you have created, starting from the endless kiss images which you have done in posters and other things, and the video which you showed in campaign. Is there a particular way in which you handle differences? Because our topic for this semester which you are doing is differentiality. Is there a way in which you handle difference in a graphic space, or you have a theory behind handling differences, or you create a difference in an image, or how do you go about it? Because
I like it. I don't know. It's my kind of. There was this cool cited from Dietrich Dietrichsen, who is a German journalist and who also teaches here at the Staedelschule 10 years ago, and who also said it's better to read not to read one book. It's better to read 3 books at the same time. So, and this is a lot like switching from one project to the other. I like it very much, and I think so that you are not working on one project, that you are working on parallel on 3 and 4 projects, and then you can measure a little bit. This is too one-dimensional. This project should be more in this direction. This project should be in this direction. Then you finalize the 3rd project. A new project is starting, etc. it's a kind of, and then you have automatically a kind of variation in it. So you see this, and you have different clients, you have different content, and then it came also completely, and also the ideas, the conceptual idea should also be completely different from project to project, more or less. As an author, that you're an architect and I'm a designer, that for sure the authorship so is more or less the same. You can't change yourself for sure. But this, I don't know. So I see a little bit that the project are a little bit together. It doesn't matter if I film with an iPhone a subway in London and or work with a three-dimensional image or whatever, or make paper foldings. Which medium means which technique?
Yes, tool or technique.
This is up to the idea. This is it's a lot of things where you start to make experiments, and then maybe you have left over on the next day, and you look at your desk and you have, I don't know, 5 experiments, and one is interesting, and then you follow this idea. With the last video, with this music video we showed you, this 5 minutes video, we try to find animation in public space. This was the first idea, and then we walked to Frankfurt. I walked to Frankfurt, not really can't go and be in the train station, be in the subway, and very simple. What is animation in public space? We also went to the zoo, etc., and all the things where you found animation. It's the kind of and then we put this together, and then we had 3 iPhones at this time. So I had 2. My colleague had also one, and then we layered. We put all iPhones on play, and then we put all these iPhones together on the desk and said, okay, it's a nice, elegant way of a kind of collage, of the animated collage. And then the interesting thing is you have different speeds in it. It's a found speed. It's not the speed came from you, because you can't decide which speed the subway is when it comes in or whatever, or a car or whatever. And then you make a combination of this kind of different movement speeds, and then you have a kind of No. Completely open. First time, completely open. This is completely open. Mostly is photography, for sure, at the end. But this is mostly completely open. But we show 2 or 3 possible ways, first sketches, and then, so maybe you as an architect, you make the same. So this could be a way, this could be a way, and you must also as a designer, it's very important that, for example, if you make a corporate identity for a client, that you develop a corporate identity, you pass it over, you receive the money, and then you're lucky, and then you go away. But the client must work with this identity the next 10, 20, or 100 years, whatever. So, and they must have something to communicate, and there must be a kind of tiny story behind that they can say, why look your identity like this, etc. And then maybe there's a conceptual way where he can say, even after 10 or 20 years, he can say, the idea was from the designer, I don't know what the designer is now making, but the idea there was blah, blah, blah.
Can you explain the SAC logo and what you were thinking?
We came up. The idea was very early with the monogram, with the kind of composition of the monogram, so a kind of flat composition. And then the second idea was to using the composition, and the composition should be in a kind of A format from the proportions, that when we put the composition on a A4 example format, we can cut different parts of it. So it was more or less a kind of a cutting machine, a stamp machine, and then we started to put different gradients or different color fields in. That was the first ideas, and then later on we came. The first poster was without the three-dimensional images, and but then Johann came with the 3D renderings, and then combined these things together was brilliant, because it was too much flat at the beginning. It was too flat at the beginning, and the first, I think the first 2 or 3 posters we did without renderings, I think, and we have this kind of different color field. It was more a formal aspect in a way, so it was a kind of, an idea of cutting a DIN piece of paper in different kind of,
But, so most of the ideas were more, I guess, experimental based, but it makes me think of this, it makes me think of that, it makes me think techie and fresh. Does that play?
No, that you can't say you make a design who looks techy, who looks fresh, etc. You make a design, and when the design it's close and it goes very well from the form together with the theme, and then it's automatically it's fresh. I think when it really works good together with the thing who's on the or the content of all those things, then it works very well, I think. So, but you can't. I also be using. It's very simple. So we use more as I use since 15 years the same typeface. Yes, because it have to do with laziness. Have to do with that is this time you go to your computer or to the internet and searching for new typefaces. So for sure you can do this, but you can also use every time the same typeface or more or less the same typeface, and then search more for the kind of graphical conceptual idea.
In a way, you could say it's more of your little bit of the.
Pardon?
If you repeat the same fonts through your projects, but wouldn't each project deserve its own language?
Yeah, for sure. But you see that this is the Helvetica or the Akkurat. Yeah? But it looks different than in the Zumtobel identity, and it looks different than in the MIT identity. Yeah, they all look different, but more or less they're the same typefaces. And I also never try to make our own typeface, because it's a hell of work, and it's another discipline than graphic design, be a typographer. You need a lot of time. A year, 2 years, maybe alone on an island, something like this.
Markus,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Danke. Gut.